Hi there.
Uh, as someone who's been in the industry for close to 20 years at this point, what would you say would be the biggest change to occur within the anime industry?
Well, a lot of companies, I don't know. Good. That's a. It's changed quite a bit. I feel like things have evolved. As far as like the streaming thing kind of took over. So speed of work it's a lot faster. You got to get through your work a lot faster. I don't know anywhere else, but at least where I am, they can't always take the time to work with like a new voice actor. And so they kind of would rely on someone else, That's why it's a small niche. It's like, well, we need somebody who's going to deliver in the amount of time that we need to deliver this, They will occasionally. There's a project that, or Netflix might be like, we want somebody new. We don't want to hear the same voices. So that definitely happens. But then that does require then more time, But they don't always have that time. So time, I've seen companies go under. We've all seen companies go under because of people, downloading instead of purchasing. But that's kind of old news, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I've been doing it, like you said, for a very long time. I think it's just we could spend more time back then, I just remember, I don't know, it felt like it was a year working on Trigun, where there's no way it would take that long. It would be a matter of a few weeks, and with some companies now, so.
Senior Mavericks and Greg with Toonami Faithful.
Yeah.
Your voice has been on the block for quite a long time, various different shows, and I'm curious what it means to you to have not only Toonami has this great legacy of giving fans in the U.S. anime, but the fact that you were pretty much part of it every step of the way, at least with your voice.
It's awesome. It's awesome to have, first off, just an outlet for that kind of thing, because it felt like, well, in the early days, it was like, oh, sweet, there's anime, super late or whatever. And then, but it became its thing, it kind of went away for a bit, and then it was like, no, this needs to stay around, And I think people now realize that, well, because anime seemed like such like the world didn't quite know it, what it was. But then now it's just become so huge, people can't ignore it anymore, Now we have like NFL champions that watch anime, and so it's like, oh, there you go, it's cool. I mean, I'm fortunate to just be part of something like that, to be included into that, it's weird. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just a regular guy doing a job, and so stuff like that it's just awesome. It's awesome, yeah.
Alright, so as following up on CJ's question, what are your thoughts on the changing face of anime as it stepped out of its subculture roots and increased more into that mainstream pop culture status?
What do I think about it? I think it's great. I think it's awesome. It's it's kind of like the world is changing. A lot of things are coming out to the light and being accepted as like, okay, it's not a bunch of weirdos. They just like watching anime. And then some people even decide then to watch anime and go like, oh, there's actually good stories. There's good shows. I think it's cool. I think it's awesome. I mean, there's so many things that I've worked on that I'm like, man, if only people saw that show. Like Wolf's Rain, one of the ones that I worked on many years ago, and I'm like, man, not enough people saw that one, or Last Exile, some of these ones that I've worked on that I'm like, man, I really like those, and I wish people had seen those, but, and then maybe one day people will go back and be like, oh, let me see some of the older stuff, yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, it does feel weird, for me, because then it's like, I've been able to be a part of some things, fortunately, and so. And again, I'm just a regular guy, I'm just doing a job. And yesterday, actually, when these NFL players came, that was like really like, wait, what? You guys watch anime? It was pretty cool. I was like, you kind of validated our existence, You guys won, and you watch anime. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's cool.
Knowing that you been in the gaming industry for such a long time. How has recording these games and as well as the level of involvement, how has that process changed over time, and what parts of that process have stayed the same?
As far as providing the voice for a game?
Yeah, providing the voice for a game as well as the level of involvement, like a lot of motion picture stuff, or just voice acting or anything. So.
Well, a lot of that, I mean, motion capture for sure has changed a bit, but it's still, camera reading your motions. And I say a bit, but it's just the technology has advanced, so that the animation, the stuff looks better, quicker, or it could read your motions better. As far as what I'm doing, it's not much different, As far as voice acting, there's, when I go into a booth, if I'm working on an anime, there's a microphone, The biggest difference for me is that we don't have paper scripts anymore. And so, I mean, that is the biggest difference, is they're saving paper now, and so they have, we have like an iPad or something in front of us, or a screen, that we don't touch. The director is the one, if there's a adjustment in the line, they'll erase it and they'll rewrite it, and then it's right there, which is fine, and I got used to it. But I get saving paper and that sort of thing, but and I really like being able to write my notes. If you get a script as an actor, you break down your character and you go through and you do all these things, right? And so in anime world or voiceover world, even in games, everything's so fast. And like I said, you don't get the script ahead of time. You walk in, that's when you find out what the story is about, really. Oh, okay, and you go, oh, all right, so who am I talking to? What's happening in the scene? All right, and then, it's not a long time that you get to figure this stuff out. Like I said, you have a small window of time that you have to get this job done. So you find out as much information as you can before you start, go. And it's like, okay, so now I've got sentences or paragraphs or whatever that I need to say. And if it's anime, I've got to match flaps. I've got to see where the breaks are in those words. And so how does it all time out? And so a lot of times there are notes that they make as writers or directors, and they'll add commas or dots and carets or whatever, that you kind of, the language, right? And where you're hitching things. But the writers don't always speak the way that you do. So sometimes it's slower or faster, and you've got to adjust. And for me, paper script, I can go really fast, and I can make my notes. Oh, I'm going to stretch this one. I'm going to tie these together. And I can put a break here. I can put a pause here. This is where I'm going to take a breath. So I have my specific set of notes that I would do. Circle as in my breath. That's where I'm going to take a breath, or a dot here, there. And so I know how many beats I have before they start talking again. I can't do that. That's the biggest change for me. The biggest difference is that the paper thing. I really liked being able to break it down, quickly. Because it's like, as I read it, before we start working, it's like, I go through my notes, and then I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go. Whereas this time around, it's just like, okay, let's see if it's like this. That's not right. Okay, oh, no, there's the break, And then as you go through that first time, if you don't get it, that's you start memorizing. Ooh, okay, I got to slow that word down. And then you section and this needs to be slower. You get good at it, though, but I don't know. I really like that part of it, just breaking it down, Sometimes I would write down, this is what I'm saying word-wise, but this is what I mean. I'll write down what I mean, But that's the biggest difference. Most other things are pretty much the same, Most of the places are using Pro Tools to track, They usually all have a Neumann or some kind of high-end microphone, a transparent compressor, and a clean preamp, That's all pretty much stayed the same. It's just the time, and there's no paper scripts. Yeah.
You were recently cast in Black Clover.
Yes.
Sonora. I'm curious how excited you were to be a part of a growing franchise like Black Clover, and the fact that your performance will be seen by the Toonami audience.
Well, it's pretty cool. I've never heard of Black Clover before getting the role, and so. Where was I when I first worked on it? I was in Texas. My dad was ill, and so I went to Texas. And then usually when I'm in Texas, Funimation finds out, you know? And they're like, hey, you know what? And usually there's like something I've worked on, and so I got to come in. And usually I'm in LA, so they usually do a patch in or whatever, Source Connect or something. And they're like, well, you're here, so can we squeeze in this time? And then I found out, oh, so they want you to play a character in Black Clover. And so I didn't know anything about it. And it was like the next day or whatever, 2 days later, and I was like, oh, I better look up what this character is. And I couldn't find much. I really found like an image of what the character looked like. And I found like maybe a clip in the Japanese, and I was like, okay, all right, maybe I understand what he is. And I kind of like built up this idea in my head of like how I overdid it. Off of that little bit, I overdid it. And I was like, okay, and I created in my mind how I was going to laugh with this character, you know, like not a lisp, but the way he's going to talk, you know. And then I go in, and then I find out it's a little different. He's like, no. And so I had to throw that all out, which was hard because I kind of, even on the way there, I was like working on the character just so I can kind of be in that character. He's like, no. We're going to play opposite of that. And I was like, okay, all right, okay. But but then I've since worked on a couple more episodes, and cool character. I can't wait to find out what's going to happen. There's some definite backstory or history to this character that I cannot wait to see and play. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You know, I want to know what the heck's going on with this. What is this?
It looks cool.
Yeah. And so, and so far, like the interaction of the characters, I'm like, okay, this is a pretty cool series. I need to find out what this is about because I hadn't heard about it. But I was even just here, people were like, oh, you're in Black Clover too. And I was like, okay, so people do know this series, you know. Here's the one thing about like voiceover is like you're in the booth. You don't know what you're working on. You know, you don't know if it's popular. You just do the best you can for that character in that moment, you know, and you just hope that the story is good. You don't know in anything that you work on, you know. You just do your absolute best, and then here's actually where you find out. You know, you come to these to a convention or event, and then somebody's like, oh, I loved you in this. And you're like, oh, they like that show. You know, that's where you find out. I was like, all right, cool. That's a character people like. Sometimes I don't even remember the name of this game I worked on. It was Sword something. But, man, I poured my heart into it. And I was like, man, I love this character. I was like, this is the best. This is going to be awesome. And it was, never came out here. It was like just in the UK or something. And I was like, dang it. I guess it was terrible. But I tried my absolute best on it. But, yeah, you don't know until you come to a con if the show is any good. Because you have no part in the actual story. You just do your thing.
Do you try and keep up to date with like upcoming shows? And I'm wondering, because it's such an industry that just keeps moving all the time. Is music a way you kind of relieve the stress?
Music for me is definitely a release, just in it's like therapy, you know. I don't earlier on, because of now things are so the pace is like this, you know. But back then, I would hear from, like my drummer would be like, "Oh, dude, you should check out this show Bleach. It's really awesome." And then I was like, I just got an audition for that, you know. And it's like, "Oh, have you seen this show Wolf's Rain? Oh, it's so cool. You should try to get in that." And I was like, "I just booked that role," you know. And there's like things like that. Like he would watch anime all the time, and he was like, "Oh, this show Naruto is awesome. You should check it out." And there's always these shows, and I'm like, "Oh, I gotta see it," you know. And so I was kind of kept up to date through him, you know. But now that, you know, things are so fast and it's not quite the same. Now it's like, I don't know. I have no idea until, you know, and that's actually why now I put as much as I can. I try to like research a character if possible. But now it's so close, like they don't have the stuff out usually. Like I remember when I worked on Code Geass, they had like, I think it was a Spanish translation was on YouTube back in the day when I had booked that role. So I was like, man, I need to find out what's going on with this character. So I found it on, I think it was on YouTube. It was, you know, it was in the Japanese language, but it was subtitled, not in English, in Spanish. So I was like, oh man, I should have paid attention in class. I'm like, what is he saying right now? And so I was trying to figure it out. But anyways, yeah, so I don't keep up with that sort of stuff, you know, because it's, there's just so many, and I have no idea. You know, I usually, if I go to a con, then I'm like, I see a lot of people dressing up as this character. What is this from? You know, what is this show? And you hear about it, you know, but yeah, and I do feel like there is some anime in LA, but not quite as much as there is like in Texas now. Funimation gets a lot of stuff there. Yeah. So, but music for sure is an escape for me. Yeah. I mean, it's 100% me, you know. I can't, not 100%, but I do write all the songs. I do structure them all, and so it starts with me, really, you know. And it's like, okay, I'm creating something. It's like a painting, you know. And you start working on this painting, you step back from it, you let somebody else throw some colors on, and then you come back to it, and it's like you readjust it, you know. And so eventually it becomes something where you're like, oh, that's pretty sweet, or it's like, no, all right, you know, yeah.
Excuse me. As someone who has worked on both incredibly long-running roles, like say Ichigo from Bleach and Artemis from Sailor Moon, how would you say that contrasts with working, say, a shorter job, like say like a one-off, one core or something like that?
Well, they can definitely take more time with the character in a longer series. And I do find that I grow more attached to shows that I'm working on longer. 'Cause in everything that I do, and I imagine every voice actor is like that, you have to give a bit of yourself to that character for it to be believable. You know, you really try to relate to that character in that moment, even if it's a bizarre world or whatever. But I do feel like the longer you spend with that character, the more you become like that character, or that character becomes you, and that's just that. You know, it's like Ichigo. Like I can, even now, I can just walk into, if they were to bring it back, I could walk in and I could just instantly be Ichigo. Like no problem. I mean, I could fall into that character easily. But it might be harder for me, like say JoJo, right? Oh, JoJo is back from the dead or whatever, and it's like, spoiler, sorry. but JoJo's back, you know, and now you gotta, then okay, it was so fast, it was so short, I need to go back through and figure out where we were. Or if it's been 10 years. Like Code Geass. I'm like, I better go double check. I remember it, spent a lot of time on it, but just want to make sure. And then I spend a lot of time on it, and then I find out that the movie, it's a little different perspective, and it's like, oh, okay. It's not coming off of what I did before. He's got to find himself. So, you know, I don't know. As an actor, you do a lot of different things, I guess. No, I guess it depends on how much you care about the project. But
With how much music seems to be a part of your life, how self-fulfilling was it to play Johnny on Space Dandy? Considering it was almost as if you were an anime character in the show.
no, it was awesome. It was so cool. Actually, the email that I got was like, hey, so there's this show we're working on called Space Dandy, and there's a character in there. He's kind of like this rock star guy. He wants to start a band and make music. His name is Johnny. You want to play him? And I was like, oh, that's perfect. I was like, yes. I was like, of course I'll play that character. And man, what a wild show that was. And then it's just, in that episode, there's just so many things that I remember just feeling like, man, that's kind of like us back in the day when we wrote a song, and we played a song a couple times. Even Polo from my band, I remember his stories. Like, it happens to most musicians if you start a band or whatever. He had one song, or I think 2 songs, and he played those 2 songs for like 2 hours over and over again at his like first gig. And it's like, I was like, wow, that's funny. But yeah, so when the characters played the one song over and over again, I was just, I don't know. I actually would love to just see more. I want a season of that. I want a season of those guys running around trying to get their band off the ground.
All right, this is something I have to ask everyone that I speak with. But what is the strangest or most interesting thing that ever happened to you while you're in a booth?
Strangest
Or most interesting?
or most interesting? Let's see, strangest. I mean, I feel like I do have a couple stories that it might kind of go to. Stories, things that have happened. All right, I'll tell you this. I was working on Wolf's Rain. I'll try to keep it quick. This was on Wolf's Rain, so it was like, I don't know, 3rd project maybe, or it was a big project for me because I was a lead, and I was like, I didn't do a whole lot of leads. I was a background ranger back in the day. So I was like, this is a really important thing. I typically try to show up a little bit early because, like I said, we don't get scripts ahead of time, so I'd like to cheat and try to see if they're, back in the day they had paper scripts, so I could thumb through it, you know? And so I'd go through or whatever. But this one day I was running super late, and so I skipped breakfast so I can be there with enough time to go through. And so as I'm there and I'm in the booth and we start working, I could feel my stomach like wanting to growl, right? It's doing that weird feeling, right? And I'm like, oh no, there's gonna be a growl, but I had this bottle of water. And so I chugged some water down real quick and it shut it up. I was like, oh, that worked, you know? And so then I keep working and then, I feel the stomach, I gulp gulp down some water, you know. So every time I feel that like growl bubble about to happen, I'd shut it up, right? And this was working for a good while, you know. I'm doing work and I'm checking the water. If I feel it, I'm fine or whatever. And I don't know if you ever been in a booth, but it's super silent. They got to keep it quiet. It's a $3,000 microphone, $3,000 preamp and compressor, you know, so they hear everything in there. And so this one moment, my stomach gives me no warning this time, and so I didn't have a chance to chug. And instead of making a growly noise where I could be like, oh, how embarrassing, my stomach growled, instead my stomach goes, so it sounded like I tried to let out a silent fart, but my butt cheeks were like, nope. It's like, just like that. And I could see the director and the engineer, they're like what? And I'm like, oh no, man, I'm not gonna work in this town again. I'm done. This is it. And in the end, they think I farted in the booth. And so I look over and they're like, and I was like, oh, no, it's not a fart. I didn't fart. It was my stomach. My stomach made that noise. And they're like, oh, sure, yeah, okay. I'm like, no, come in here. Just come in and smell it. Come in and smell it. It's okay, it's fine. They're like, no. So anyways, they thought I farted in the booth. Yeah. But luckily, they didn't fire me. I'm still working. But I don't think they believed me. I think they actually thought I farted in the booth.
So out of all the shows and games that you've done, which one or which ones have resonated with you the most?
Oh, so many of them. Well, Devil May Cry is definitely one that resonates with me. Bleach, Code Geass, Trigun. Oh, Trigun. I just started rewatching that one. You guys need to throw that back up on Toonami.
I agree.
Oh, man. There's a lot. Wolf's Rain. Eureka 7. I could just keep going. There's a lot. And for different reasons, you know. They're all different reasons why. Quickly, I'll just say Devil May Cry is one because I remember going through that first script in 4. And as I was going through it, I was panicking, and I wasn't sure how to play Nero, because when I was reading them, I was familiar with the original game. I'm like, man, it feels like I want to play him like Dante, but I don't want there to be 2 Dantes. And I go to Yuji, and I'm like, Yuji, I'm not sure how to play him. I'm kind of like freaking out. I'm not really sure what to do. And he stops me. He's like, Johnny, you are Nero. And he walks away. And I was like, what? What does that mean? What am I supposed to do? And then I was like, I guess I just make whatever choices I would make if I was in this world and this was happening to me. And so I basically did that, you know. So yeah, but each one of those, there's like something like that had connected me to it. And usually it's one of those shows that is a bit longer, it's a bigger series or something. Yeah.
I'll make this a quick one. There's been rumors and people really clamoring for more Bleach. They want to finish off the manga. Are you just as crazy as the fans to kind of get back to finish the story of how the manga ended as well?
Oh, 100%. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's where when the live action was coming around, I was like, and Yuji actually, who did Devil May Cry, did the action. He showed me it while we were working on the voiceover for DMC 5 in the booth, and then he was like, hey, come here, check it out. He shows me the Bleach action stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be pretty sweet. So I was excited to do that. There's the 1,000-Year Blood War that Ryan's doing. It's like a fan animated.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I reached out to him. I was like, hey, Bleach is done as far as I know, so I'll voice Ichigo if you want it, Ichigo. And he's like, okay. And so I'm just going to keep working with him until they bring the show back, you know. But yeah, so I would absolutely love that, you know. I think if enough fans were like, hey, come on, give us the rest. Yeah, I think, you know, it could possibly happen.